Hello my friends and welcome back to the channel. Flipping tables. No, just kidding, that's not why we're here. As you've probably seen, we are here today because we're going to be looking at the arms and protection Weakauras. I've got those finished up as I said I would have in my last video. Got those finished up, and then I'm also going to take a look at the Elvui settings that I've got. Well, maybe not the settings, but we're going to at least look at where everything is, and I'm going to give you guys the import strings for all three of those items. So we'll have the arms group, the protection group, and then the Elvui layout and settings. And we'll have all of those up for all of you, my friends. So let's start with arms, because that's the spec that I'm sitting in right now. So these are going to end up looking somewhat similar to the Fury Weakauras. I'm going to go ahead and select the group because there are a few that aren't displayed at the moment. But let's kind of go through and see what we've got here. So we've got the Battle Shout. Keep wanting to say Battle Cry. That's not at all what it is. The Battle Shout buff. So if you are in combat, out of combat, dead, alive, but you do whatever your status is, but if you do not have the Battle Shout buff active, this will show up in the middle of your screen and just be a reminder to, hey, use your Battle Shout, use your raid buff. I know I need that reminder because I'll keep on forgetting it if I don't. We've got the main rotational abilities, and then, you know, a little bit extra in the middle here, right underneath the rage bar. The rage bar is a Weakaura. And it's the same rage bar for protection, arms, and fury. I did go ahead and separate it out, as you can see in here, so that they each have their own rage bar, in case, you know, there are other Weakauras for one spec that you don't like, but you want to use mine for a couple of specs, or, you know, just however you want to do that. So you get a rage bar with whichever specs Weakauras you decide to use. It is exactly the same in all three specs, so it shouldn't be any different depending on what you choose to run with. But anyway, here, so we've got Overpower. This shows the charges on the bottom and the remaining cooldown on the top. We've got Mortal Strike. This will show you the cooldown. We've got Execute. This will show you the, well, there's no cooldown for arms, but it'll be here for you to check when you're able to use it. We've got Cleave. If you have taken that talent, this will be a cooldown tracker right in the middle. Kind of awkward placement, but I couldn't find a better placement for it, and I couldn't really figure out what else I would want to put in the middle here, right? I mean, some of the other options were like Sweeping Strikes, but that's more of a buff that I wanted to be a little bit bigger. Anyway, yeah, that's Cleave is right there, and then Blade Storm is on the edge here. If you take Ravager, there's another Weakaura that'll appear instead of the Blade Storm Weakaura. So you'll have those abilities right here. On the left side, we've got most of our like defensive and then kind of more regular cooldowns. So Avatar, if you take it as a talent, is up on top, and then Warbreaker or Colossus Smash, if you've taken a different talent, is going to be right here. This is just the cooldown tracker. These are just cooldown trackers on the very outside. And then we've got Die by the Sword and Rallying Cry. Keep wanting to call that Commanding Shout. On this side, we've got Hamstring. So if you have Hamstring on your opponent, this will show the current remaining duration of it. Sweeping Strikes, this is just the cooldown tracker. This doesn't show the actual like time you have left on the ability. This is just the cooldown tracker. And then we have Victory Rush. If you have it available, this will pop up and show you how much longer you have to use it. On the bottom, we've got our mobility / utility stuff. In the middle here, Charge, Pummel, Berserker Rage, Intimidating Shout, Stormbolt, Heroic Leap. And then on the outside here, we have Skull Splitter. I was debating putting this in the middle, but it ended up out here kind of on its own. But it will light up when Skull Splitter is available, so at least it should. Let me double check that, if I can find the Weakaura for it. There it is, Skull Splitter. So conditions, yeah, it'll glow if it is available. And then on the outside over here, we've got the Rallying Cry buff tracker. So that'll track the actual buff on you. And then above the rage bar in the middle, we've got some buff and debuff trackers. So this is Overpower. It will show you the number of stacks of the buff that you currently have for your next Mortal Strike. And then it'll show you the remaining duration that you have before they wear out, which I don't think is ever really going to be an issue. I mean, if you use, you know, one charge of Overpower and then combat ends before you mortal strike, then maybe it'll run out, but I don't think that would be a very big deal. We've got a Rindge Tracker, and then this tracks the time on the avatar buff if you take avatars to talent. So this will be just Rind on your current target, by the way, so bear that in mind. Over here we've got sweeping strikes, so you use sweeping strikes and then this will start tracking the cooldown, and then this one will show you how much longer you have on the ability. Now I know there were some questions in the Fury video, like, you know, why not include the buff on these bigger ones on the outside? I like having buffs tracked right alongside of my resource bar, right? So if I've got sweeping strikes up and I'm looking at my resource bar, I want to know right here how much time I have left on it, and then have the cooldown outside of that. That's just my way of thinking. You know, you can feel free to tweak these however you want to. If you don't like that, you know, you can do whatever you want with them. You can not use them, you can use them. I just want to make them available because people kept asking and seemed genuinely interested. Here we've got the Colossus Smash buff tracker. I know Warbreaker's icon is showing up, but it'll actually be the Colossus Smash buff. We can show that on a dummy in just a minute. And then Die by the Sword will have the cooldown, not the cooldown, the duration of the buff right here. And then defensive stance, if you're in defensive stance, this will pop up. If you're not, it will be hidden. So let's see these in a little bit of action. So start getting stuff going. So you see the Colossus Smash buff appears there. Yeah, so this is what the Weakauras sort of look like in action. Moving along, because I don't want this to be a terribly long video, we'll show the protection Weakauras. Now these are laid out slightly differently compared to Arms and Fury, mostly because protection is not a DPS spec. But what we've got is rotational abilities, again, kind of underneath the rage bar here. We do have kind of a mixed bag. So this is your shield block icon. It's going to show you charges in the bottom right corner and then the cooldown time in the middle. Shield block, or not shield block, shield slam is right here. Thunderclap, and then revenge. Yeah, so those are your main rotational abilities, kind of, sort of, in a way. I've got utility, but not mobility down here. I feel like mobility is more of a important thing to track as a tank, so I've made those a little bigger and moved them directly to the left of the rage bar. So Heroic Leap is here, Intercept is right here. We've got Avatar and Taunt cooldown trackers right here, so that's kind of, you know, what's on the left side here. On the right side, we've got Victory Rush, so if you have it available, it'll pop up right here and you'll know, hey, I can heal myself now. You've got Shield Wall, Last Stand, Demo Shout, and Rallying Cry, so these are your main defensives as a Prot Warrior. This just tracks the cooldown. And then above the rage bar on the left, we've got Shield Block, and on the right, immediately above the rage bar, we've got Ignore Pain. Now, Ignore Pain isn't nearly as powerful as it was, but this will at least show you, hey, I have Ignore Pain up, and I'm ignoring 50% of incoming damage. It's coming in right now. And then above Shield Block, I've also got Last Stand and then Shield Wall. And above Ignore Pain, we've got Demoralizing Shout. So this will track if the debuff is up on your current target. So those are the protection Weakauras. A little bit more simplistic. You know, there's not as much nuance to the rotation. It's mostly just tracking, like, hey, what defensive am I using right now? How much longer do I have on these defensives? Because that's more what I'm concerned about when I'm playing protection. And then, you know, a couple of things like tracking Taunt and Avatar, mobility, that sort of thing. So those are those protection Weakauras and arms Weakauras. Those will both have links to wago.io. I'll include those in the description down below. And lastly, I mentioned I wanted to talk about my current Elvui settings. So let's toggle the anchors because this will show us what we've got everywhere on the screen. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, I want to mention that when I first installed Elvui many moons ago, I basically used Preach's UI, his configurations and everything. So a lot of the stuff is exactly the same as what he has set up, and a lot of the settings I didn't bother changing because I just really like the way that he had it set up. So, you know, go check out his channel if you haven't recently. Give him some likes, give him some attention, because he does a lot of great stuff for the community, and he helped me out with my UI just by making it available. I did change a few things. I moved the position of some things around. I made the bars different because I like having more action bars available, particularly for some specs where you have, you know, some macros that you want to work in, or if you're doing PvP and you want arena macros on your bars. I like having as many spaces available as possible, so I added an extra action bar in the middle and then kind of split them up 2 and 2 rather than having them all stacked up, and that allowed me to lower some of these things, which gives me more room for where I like my Weakauras. I changed the way that the bars are displayed, so I think Preach has had it set up as like the default display for Elvui, which is like very small bars that fill up from bottom to top. I prefer to have bars that fill up left to right, and then, you know, have them a little bigger and more prominent in my UI. So this is what the setup looks like. We've got the chat window over here, the right chat, which is empty, and then the panel is hidden. Boss frames and arena frames. So if you're, you know, in a boss fight, or if you're in an arena, you'll get the frames on the side here, and they'll have things like select the arena frames. They'll show a healer logo for healer. They'll show you what spec your opponent is. So buffs and debuffs are still tracked up here. Mini map. We've got like the player health and rage bar, or, you know, whatever spec you're using. Cast bars in the middle here. Your target is here. The target of your target is displayed in between, which is a really helpful thing to have, particularly for tanking. I think if you are looking at a mob and it's not targeting you, it's really helpful to know that, because then you can say, oh hey, I should taunt this thing, or oh hey, you know, maybe my other tank has him, so I should look for something else. And then focus is up here. I played around with the location of focus a lot over the years, but I think having it on the same side as my target and then relatively close by makes a lot of sense to me. That's that. So let me know if you have questions about what any of this other stuff is. I'll answer if I'm able to. Yeah, because people have been requesting it, I will include a link to this, but you can also check out Preach's if you like his better, because he's the guy who configured Elvui. The Weakauras are all mine. I've set those all up. The Elvui is tweaked by me, but not mine. I'm not going to take credit for it. I'm just including the link to it because people are interested in it. So that's what we've got available for you guys today. We've got the Elvui configuration, and then the Weakauras that I have set up for arms and for protection. So let me know if you have questions about those. If you run into any problems with those, please let me know in the comments of this video, and I will look into them. I'll do my best to help you guys troubleshoot them, or try to get an updated Weakauras string out there that has fixes if you run into any bugs with them, or if there's anything else that you think is like, you know, hey, Thor, why didn't you track this? It's like the most obvious thing in the world and you didn't include them for it. Then, you know, I'm happy to make those changes and fix them as we can. Thank you all for joining us in this video. If you like the content, if you like what you're seeing, consider subscribing to the channel. We do streams 3 days a week. We do videos at least 2 days a week. We get bonus content on the weekends when we have time to do that. So subscribe and check out the other content we've been putting out. We're putting out a lot of content as we make this push into Battle for Azeroth, and we're picking up some steam on the channel, which I am very excited about. So thank you all for joining me. Thank you all for sticking around this long in the video. I hope you find these different UI items very helpful. I know with the first time I set up a UI that wasn't the default UI, it made it a lot easier for me to play the game. So hopefully it has a similar impact on some of you guys who are setting those things up for the first time as well. I will also include links to download links for Weakauras and for Elvui in the video description. I know some people had questions about, like, hey, where do I find this Weakauras thing? You know, I'm on the site and I can't find a download for it. So I'll include downloads for those add-ons and instructions to install them in the description as well. Thank you all for joining us for this video, and until next time, y'all have a great day. Peace.